So we have to address this contrast, because without it, this is how shame can start to sneak in. So let's now talk about the other side, right? We just talked about what the internet shows and what the messaging is about, going out and eating by yourself and how empowering that is. But let's flip the lens, because not everybody who eats alone is doing it by choice. So the version that we just talked about is you're choosing to go out and eat by yourself. And just to recap, the intention is that it's empowered, but there is a contrast where maybe there's some other things going on, other invisible conversations that are going on in your head. But then the other kind of solo dining is not doing it by choice from this place, but it's the kind of solo eating that happens in secrecy. Okay, this is also solo eating, right? Secret eating, the one where you're hiding in the kitchen with the fridge door still open, standing up, or eating in your car, going to 7-Eleven, getting a whole thing of donuts, eating in your car, windows fogged, right? Or at night in the dark, wherever, because somehow when it's dark or when it's secret or hiding, it feels like it's less real that this is happening. So this type of solo dining, it's not mindful solo dining, right? This is emotional eating in isolation. However, you're still solo. And the reason that this is so particularly painful and not empowering is because this isn't about the food. It's about loneliness. It's about secrecy. It's about panic, right? It's about shame. That's basically saying, I don't want anyone to see me like this. And yet, this type of solo dining and solo eating is a pattern, right? It becomes a pattern. And it's a pattern that we've talked about often. We just haven't connected it to this concept of eating alone, which is why we're really raising the curtains on this. Right? And it becomes a pattern because you're still performing, right? You restrict all day to look in control, and you want others to feel like they feel like you're in control. But then when you're finally by yourself, the floodgates open. Because when you're alone, you give yourself permission to be human. Right? You give yourself permission to take off the mask, stop the performance. But what happens is it takes so much emotional energy to carry on the performance that it's not a release and a relief that's nurturing. Instead, it becomes like a collapse. Okay, so the difference between, relaxation and collapse, or relief and collapse, or, setting down the performance where you can just be human and collapse, that's what this is. This is like so much energy is going into my day-to-day performance, and then I have a collapse, and that collapse is this secret eating. And it's not because you're weak, right? This isn't a weakness, but it's really just because food has become the only safe place, the only area that you feel comfortable accessing that release. Because when you do it with food, you also feel like it's not just you. You also feel it's not just you. You feel like there's something else with you that's participating and that's engaging with this, right? That's engaging with this experience. And so it's not that you love eating in secret. It's just you don't know how to soothe yourself any other way, even though it feels really awful. This is what you know, and this is another version of solo eating. But the cost is really high because every time that you eat in hiding, it reinforces the belief that your needs and your humanity and your ability, or not ability, but your birthright to feel complex emotions is something to be ashamed of, right? It's something that can make you a failure. And so how do we reclaim solo eating? How do we reclaim it? Right? What if it doesn't have to be a secret or a spectacle? Because that's sort of what we started with, right? Beginning, it's being presented now through the internet as a spectacle. And then the other way is a secret. So what's the in between? How do we reclaim this? We reclaim it by making it a ceremony. Okay, what if solo eating became a ceremony where it's a moment of connection, where it's a moment of calm, where it's a moment where you say to yourself that you matter enough to pause. You deserve to eat slowly. You're safe to take up space at this table. He's such a big difference between secret, spectacle, and ceremony. Because you could make going out to eat at a cafe by yourself a ceremony. And if you imagine it that way, if you go in with the intention of it being that way, just think about it right now. Think about it. Think about the different emotional state you're going to go into eating a meal by yourself if you go in knowing that it's a ceremony with yourself, rather than hoping that it's going to provide for you an experience of empowerment.